بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإن يمسسك الله بضر فلا كاشف له إلا هو وإن يمسسك بخير فهو على كل شيء قدير.
I spent my life running away from you. Now I have nowhere to turn except to you. I turn to you, begging you to be saved, unchain me into an obedient slave.
I was still functioning mentally to re-evaluate my life. Number two, I got to understand who are my true friends. And I came to realize friends are divided into three categories. Just to confirm that I have lost my hair and how I would look without it. And I told many people I'd only look younger. In actual fact, I was prepared for that situation. They stopped the activities, they left their business, even their families, and they chose to be with me 24/7. If I have another chance to have my mother now, I would make sure that I'm with her the longer I can. And I say to anybody here who has a mother alive, or a father for that matter, the gates of heaven are open while they are still alive. When they are gone, one gate of heaven is closed, is shut.
In a time of darkness and greed, it is your light that we need. You came to teach us how to live. Muhammad, Ya Rasulallah, you were so caring and kind. Your soul was full of light. The best of mankind. Muhammad, khayru khalqillah. Sallu ala Rasulillah, Habib al-Mustafa. Peace be upon the messenger, the chosen one. From luxury you turned away, and all night you would pray, truthful in every word you say. Muhammad, Ya Rasulallah, your face was brighter than the sun.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم افتح لنا أبواب حكمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علمك. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا إنك على كل شيء قدير. My dear brothers and sisters, I salute you all with the salutation of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I'd like to thank you for sparing some of your time to come and listen to the story that I have to share with you. And it's a story that I think most of us, if it's not all of us, need to know. By the raise of hands, can you please raise your hand if you know someone, a dear friend or a family member that was gifted with the gift of cancer? Please raise your hands. Thank you so much. By the raise of hands, can you also raise your hand if you have a family member, a very close family member, who was not inflicted but was gifted with cancer? Please raise your hand. A few are, okay. By the raise of hand, can you raise your hand if you as a person yourself, you are a survivor of cancer? Please raise your hand. Okay, so I see a handful. So what I'm going to share with you is not a personal story, but there are other people amongst us who have been, I call it a gift rather than a disease. The subject, first of all, has got a stigma with it. The minute we hear someone has been inflicted with cancer, then somehow we label that person as he or she is ready to die. We show a lot of sympathy. We try to support. Expect that person to deteriorate slowly and gradually. And then after a while, we attend the funeral and the game is over and then it's somebody else. Does that sound familiar? If it does, say yes, because I'm going to engage you, yeah? Well, I was lucky enough to experience the journey of cancer twice. First and foremost, it was with my mother, who alhamdulillah has already left the world to a better world. And then it was my part as well, and my share, to experience the journey. And I must admit, I never understood what my mother was going through until I went through the same journey. So to me, it was a blessing in disguise that many people fail to realize and to appreciate. So first of all, let us talk about the generality, how people who go through, who are diagnosed with cancer, whatever it is, the typical reaction that happen, and then I will share with you how it should happen so that we are ready for it should it come. The typical approach is that when a person goes for normal checkups, the person is healthy, vibrant with life, full of energy, and the doctor somehow breaks the news and says, you have been diagnosed with cancer, whether it is at its first stage, second stage, third stage, or fourth stage. And the differences of these is that when it is fourth stage, it has metastasized and it is ready to spread in the body. The first reaction is a shock. Whether that person or the family, they go through a shock. And the moment of a shock, it's a moment of confusion, it's a moment of panic, it's a moment of illusion, it's a moment of disorientation, it's a moment of numbness, it's a moment of freezing, it's a moment of not knowing what to do. And the first thing people do is that they try to hide that something is wrong. They don't want anybody outside their family to know. They don't want even some members of the family to know. And sometimes, unfortunately, the person who's been diagnosed with cancer, even those within the family, they fail to tell the person that you've been diagnosed with cancer. And I can understand the reasons is simply because people have not been equipped enough to understand what is cancer and how to deal with it. Once they've gone through the shock, the second thing that follows is anger. And the anger is expressed in different ways. Some people, they go through crying moments. Some people realize that the days are numbered, and then they are angry at themselves, angry at the family, angry at doctors, angry at those who have caused cancer, be it the food industry or the chemical industry. They try to find someone to blame. And unfortunately, some people even blame, they're angry at God, at Allah. Why me? What have I done wrong? And they go through that anger of expression with anger, bursts of angers. They cannot control the emotions. They break down for a very petty matter. And you see them losing it, basically, And most of the time they are angry with themselves and with everybody else. Once the anger begins to subside, then it is a moment of denial. It's a moment of rejection. They begin to seclude themselves. They do not participate in life. They feel that they have no energy. They feel that they should take time out. And they begin to go in a search. In that search, as they begin to search, they begin to read a lot. They visit many doctors and many hospitals to try and seek a second opinion and a third opinion. And in so doing, they try to find reasons and how to deal with it. And I must admit, going through that moment can be confusing and it can be overwhelming. For everyone tries to help, and because of many advices, many of information that the person receives, usually they are overwhelmed with information and they no longer know the truth from the false. They don't know the right treatment from the wrong one. Eventually, they learn to live with the disease. They learn to live with the condition. And that is the acceptance. It is only when they begin to accept, they stop resisting the disease, they stop resisting the reality, then when they truly accept, then they have an opportunity for hope. Some people don't make it to the acceptance because in the denial mode, they try to fight it, they get overdoses of treatment, and that is when most of people don't make it to the end. That is the typical journey that people go through. I'm going to share the personal story as well as we go along. The story began with my mother, who was healthy, had the typical common diseases that come with age. She was diabetic, and she had hypertension, and she had some issues with some of her glands, thyroid glands. We took her for the annual checkup abroad, and she was given a clean bill of health, with an exception of the typical things that she knew. Coming back, somehow somebody recommended to her to have an operation to remove the thyroid glands because it was causing her some problems. A month later, she began to feel weak and weaker. Taking her to hospitals, she was given the typical medicine of painkillers. 2 months later, she could not handle it. She was getting weaker and weaker. A PET scan, a CT scan done on her revealed that cancer had spread over her body. And it was gone beyond the 4th stage. Basically, it has spread and it has affected many organs. The question we asked ourselves, what happened between the full checkup within 3 months, 4 months, suddenly it has spread so far. Then we had to take her abroad again to try and get her the alternative medicine, not the typical mainstream medicine of chemo, radiation, and surgery, because she was weak. She could not handle that. We spent over a month doing the alternative medicine, hypothermia, and multivitamins, as well as changing the diet. That gave some results. 6 months later, she deteriorated again, and this time we thought, let us try the mainstream medicine. She went through the mainstream medicine, and with time we could see that she was deteriorating, and she never made it to recovery because she was too weak and the medicine was too strong, and most of the time she had to skip the therapy because she could not handle it. The only good thing about what happened to my mother is that we were blessed to be around her. We gave her all the affection, and people around her who knew her also participated in giving her the affection, the attention, and we believe that she died peacefully. Because the doctor said, typically when people go through that stage of that spreading of disease and with that type of medication, they usually need very strong painkillers to be able to survive, but she never once took any painkiller. She was always at peace. May Allah bless her soul, and may we have a chance to meet her somewhere that is in a blissful heaven. Ameen. As she was going through that process, as a family, we all felt helpless, seeing her condition and unable to help. We wanted to help, but we didn't know how to help. We wanted to give her the best attention, but we didn't know how. We wanted to spend all our wealth to give her the best treatment, but we didn't know where to go. And the only thing we could is just sit there and observe and just watch and do nothing, because we felt there is nothing else we can do. And I believe, being Muslims, we did gain our strength from our belief in our religion, and I believe because of our beliefs, we were able to handle situations, and she was able to handle her condition, and she accepted it, and she died peacefully. Lesson number one I learned is when I was diagnosed as well with cancer. For 2 consecutive years, I resisted going through the mainstream treatment. Changed my diet, changed my lifestyle. And for 2 years, every 4 months, I would do the checkups, CT scans, PET scan, and the doctors would tell me the tumor hasn't grown, nor has it shrunk. It has remained as it is. Then, because of the many advices that I was getting and the research I was doing in trying different treatments, one type of treatment basically activated the growth of these cells, and then I was admitted in the hospital in an ICU, and I had to have an emergency operation. So lesson number one to my friends who are listening is that the first lesson I learned about cancer is don't touch it. The minute you poke it, the minute you allow doctors to go and play with it, through any type of medication, is just like playing with a beehive. Suddenly, an emergency happens within those cells, and they multiply in big numbers in a very short period of time. When that happened, between the emergency that they did on me and the treatment that I began to take, the mainstream, it was only 2 months. And within 2 months, it had spread from being 3 inches long to basically spreading over different organs, and now it was almost my whole tummy and everything that is associated with it. It had already spread all over. So lesson number one, you all have cancerous cells. The only thing they need is someone to go and activate it. And we'll talk about what activates these cancer cells for them to multiply out of control. So we think they multiply out of control. Lesson number two that I have learned is that in interacting with doctors, locally and abroad, in reading many books, in doing many researches, until today, nobody can claim to know what activates these cells. All of it is a guesswork. Even doctors who are specialized in this field, I did ask them, and they told me the same thing. Then I did challenge doctors. Why for so many years we still don't have the treatment? And the answers I got were shocking and they were revealing. The first doctor was in Germany, and he specialized in research of cancer. I met him and his wife, and we sat having coffee and chatting because he was introduced to me by a friend. So I asked him, why until now we are unable to find the cure for the disease? And then I posed a question that was a provoking question. I said, for I hear the pharmaceutical industry does not want the treatment to be discovered. Otherwise, they lose a lot of money. And they are the ones who finance and support the research, as well as sometimes sponsor even doctors in workshops and conferences and others. Is there any truth behind this? He said, in actual fact, there is a big truth behind this. So I said, and what are you doing about it? He said, I'll tell you, we the medical professions, how we treat cancer today and how we are dealing with it. He said, imagine there are many buses that are going on a tour, and they have to go through a very hilly mountain, a very tough terrain. The terrain is so narrow and so dangerous that many of these buses have accidents and they fall from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain. He says, we the professions, we the doctors, are at the bottom of the mountain dealing with an issue. In other words, we are reactive at a very late stage. Until today, we are unable to diagnose cancer at its early ages. Most of the time, we discover it when it is at the third or fourth stage, and by then it is too late. So that is one revelation about how much doctors know about cancer. Then I asked another doctor in Oman, we as Muslims believe in the Quran. We've been told in many verses in the Quran that the honey has got a cure for many diseases. We read the biographies of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he tells us that the black seed, garlic, and other natural herbs do cure many diseases. Why aren't you doctors exploring this field rather than just sticking with the mainstream medicine? And he told me, he said, I'll tell you the truth. We doctors have taken an oath only to say what we know. From the time we enter the medical college to the time we graduate, we are kept so busy with information, sometimes information overload, and then we have to keep on reading and researching in the field. We rarely have time to do anything else. So we are ignorant about anything other than what we have been taught. That was revelation number 2 of how much doctors know about the disease. Then I spoke to another doctor who is a professor, who is looking after me now, and he's an Omani. And he gave me another revelation. He says, look, it's good that you have gone through the chemo, you've gone through the surgery, you've gone through the radiation, you've gone through everything. But I can tell you, we have no way to cure you from the disease. The only thing we can do is try to control it. Try to control it so that it doesn't spread. And the only thing we can do is just give you medicine and see how you react to the medicine. That was revelation number 3 of how much doctors know about the disease. The 4th revelation is that before I had to go undergo surgery and the chemo and the radiation, I was given a long list of side effects that I may expect. From losing my precious beard, and that was the thing that I feared the most, because this is my brand and this is my title, and this is how people know me. And surprisingly enough, when people got to know that I had cancer, a lot of people wanted to visit me just to confirm that I have lost my hair and how I would look without it. And I told many people I'd only look younger. In actual fact, I was prepared for that situation, but somehow I was saved from losing my hair. All the way to the different rashes that you'd have, to numbness, to the upset of the systems, be the digestive system, the blood system, the sleeping pattern, the appetites, and you name it. And of the long, long list that I was given of to preparing myself with it, alhamdulillah, I must say, even the doctor said from the scale of 0 to 10, 0, nothing happens. 10, it messes you up totally. I was told that I'm very close to 0 and 1. I was saved, maybe by the blessings and the du'as of many people who love me. And that was another revelation that went through. In other words, doctors are always guessing, and the only reason they tell you of all these side effects is to protect themselves. Should anything happen to you, they prepare you for that. Some of it is very scary. They tell you your kidneys are going to fail, your liver is not going to function, and you're going to lose your senses. Many of it is really, really, if you don't have a very strong faith, it can kill you before the disease kills you. The fifth revelation that I had, and that was the most important one. At times of difficulties, it is a wake-up call for you to rethink, reevaluate your life, to see where you are going, what is important, what's not important, and where should you pay attention and where should you pay less attention. So for everything that happened to me, the biggest blessing that I had is that, number one, I had an opportunity whilst I was still functioning mentally to reevaluate my life. Number two, I got to understand who are my true friends. And I came to realize friends are divided into 3 categories. Category number one are the ones who are going to be there for you 24/7. There are people who did truly dropped everything. They stopped their activities, they left their business, even their families, and they chose to be with me 24/7. They were doing even a better job than my family. Those were the precious friends, and you can count them by a single hand, very few. Such friends, you never appreciate their true value until you are hit with a calamity or a crisis or a difficult moment like this. I never understood that a friend in need is a friend indeed until this happened to me. Second category of friends are the ones who truly show their love and affection, and they truly want to help, but they don't know how to help. They would call, they would visit, they would ask. Some of them went to an extent of making prayers, donating something to the charity on my behalf and my family. And every now and then they'll be there for you. That is category number 2. Category number 3 are the people who were so demanding of my time when I was okay, and I was available for them 24/7, literally. And yet, when this happened to me, not even a single call to say, we heard the bad news, we are sorry. Not a call, not a visit. Contrary to that, they wanted to hear even worse news. Somehow, I don't know why. Even when the news got around, and most of people knew it, they never even came to visit. The most shocking thing is that even when I lost my mother, they never even said, sorry, we heard that you lost your mother. Yet, when something happened to them, they thought they could pick the phone and just call and say, Khalfan, can you come? I have an issue with my son, I have an issue with my wife, I have an issue on religious grounds, I have an issue with my emotions. Come and sit with me, I want to talk to you. And those people, they are out there. They are opportunistic, and they have no feelings for others. They are just there to exploit other people, thinking that everybody is there for them. So that was a big revelation that I got to understand. So today I'm a bit careful who I choose to be my friend. Nevertheless, forgiveness is a virtue, and I hold no feelings towards those people. I feel sorry for them, but I hold no feelings towards them in the sense that negative feelings. Now let's come to the most important discussion. What causes cancer? And are you the next victim, if you want to call it a victim? And even better, how can you protect yourself from becoming the next victim? It all works at different levels. I have with me a very good book. The person who authored it has died. So when I'm going to present it, it's not that I'm marketing the person, but it's one of the best books that I've ever read about cancer. Cancer is not a disease. Rule number one, do not treat it as a disease. It's not a disease. The author is a German author.